The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection, came forward and put this question to Jesus, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us, if someone's brother dies leaving a wife but no child, his brother must take the wife and raise up descendants for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman but died childless. Then the second and third married her, and likewise all the 7 died childless. Finally the woman also died. Now at the resurrection, whose wife will the woman be? For all 7 had been married to her." Jesus said to them, "The children of this age marry and remarry, but those who are deemed worthy to attain to the coming age and to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given up in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like angels, and they are the children of God, because they are the ones who will rise. Then the dead will rise. Even Moses made known in the passage about the bush, when he called out, 'Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' And he is not God of the dead, but of the living. For to him all are alive." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
If you ever wonder whether the Scriptures address our current situation, we need look no further than the readings for this 32nd Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C. The first reading from the first book of Maccabees deals with cultural and religious aggression and persecution on behalf of the political powers. The gospel features a discussion between Jesus and a group of his contemporaries who did not believe in life after death. Unfortunately, it seems we have become desensitized to religious persecution and killings. Our Holy Father has pointed out there are more Christians dying today than in the early days of the Church. In February of last year, 21 men who belonged to the Coptic Church, which is the largest Christian church in Egypt and in northeast Africa, were arrested in Libya by ISIS and told to renounce their Christian faith. When they refused to do so, they were beheaded along a beach along the Mediterranean Sea. 3 months later, last April, in Lahore, Pakistan, some young Muslims stopped a 13-year-old Christian boy and asked what his religion was. When he answered that he was a Christian, they doused him with kerosene, set him on fire, and a few days later, he died. Very similar to the situation of persecution and violence that we read about in our first reading today. Now, in regard to our gospel and the lack of belief in the resurrection of the body and life everlasting, we need only take note of how burial practices have changed in this country in recent years. We live in a secularized society that is doing its best to keep God invisible and silent and totally absent from daily life. Science and technology, which exert such a fascination and hold upon us today, can tell us nothing about life after death. Our society tries to respond by hiding death because it has no answer to what happens after one's body stops breathing. More and more, if you check the death notices, they announce no visitation, no funeral service, but there will be a gathering to celebrate the life of the deceased, which may be of some temporary comfort. But it does not help the mourners to face the great question, what now becomes of our beloved? As Catholics, we believe in the resurrection of the body and life everlasting. Amen. We will profess these words out loud in just a few minutes, and today's readings support that profession. In our first reading, in the midst of severe persecution, a mother and her sons faced enormous pressure, torture, in fact, to abandon the God of Israel and their Jewish way of life. What these brothers told their religious persecutors is that they expected a life beyond this life. One of them said, "I die with the hope God gives of being raised up by Him." This earthly life and its pleasures do not constitute the whole of reality. All martyrs witness to their belief in God and in a higher realm of existence, a reality beyond the limits imposed by time and space. And they are willing to stake their lives on what is good and true and ultimately most profoundly real. To my brothers and sisters who are attending this white Mass in the name of Christ the Healer and who are here because of their engagement in the healthcare profession, you too are called to stake your lives on what is good and true and most profoundly real. Today, our church has the opportunity to provide guidance, to enact healthcare policies that uphold the sanctity of life from conception to natural death, as well as to promote the common good in our society, to bring Christ's message of healing and mercy to the public square, and to build up a culture of life in healthcare. Today, coercive government mandates trample the religious freedom of healthcare providers, which is being lost or at least eroded at an amazing speed. Yesterday's New York Times carried an op-ed piece by a cardiovascular physician entitled "On Assisted Suicide, Going Beyond Doing No Harm." He reports that doctors have not budged in their opposition to right-to-die laws, even in the face of cultural trends and legislative successes. Doctors, he asserts, need to help patients achieve their goals rather than obstruct them. Doctors should not be seeking guidance from ancient edicts like the Hippocratic Oath. His conclusion: doctors need to wake up and realize what patients face in these modern times. The way people die has changed over these past decades, and so doctors must change as well. And so we see the culture of death tightening its grip on America. Not satisfied with killing 1 million a year at the beginning of the continuum of life, but now nibbling away at the other end of the life spectrum. My brothers and sisters, you are called to care for life, to remind everyone by word and deed that life is sacred at every phase and at every age. The credibility of health care is measured not only by efficiency and expanding market share, but also in the attention and love given to the person whose life remains filled with dignity, whose life is always inviolable. Our prayer today is like the martyrs who faced persecution for finding their voice and speaking up. Those involved in healthcare may remain faithful to these values and work to entrench them once again in our society. May God's blessings be with us all as we seek to follow Jesus, who is our way, our truth, and our life.